Hello, boys and girls. This is Brad Wilson with the next episode in the Crush Cash Game series. Looking at my tables, looks like I got a bunch of 400 and L, one 600 and L. Let's jump into the action. I know it's been a little while since I've made a video for EnhanceYourEdge.com. Gonna try to get back in the swing of things. And if you want to watch me on Twitch, I'm gonna start streaming every single Saturday from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The fours at the bottom right, just gonna check and hope for check through. Check and collect my winnings. Look at my various tables. Looks like I do have a fish at the top right, on my right, and on my left as well. 36-15, typically going to be a weaker player, but we'll see. I'm 41-24, so could be an instance where I started the table and we're playing heads up, so our stats are a little funky. A6 at the bottom left. Throwing out the small c-bet. Probably not going to fold any hand that contains a club, but may fold out a bunch of his random type hands that have no club. Hands that we're pretty much beating, but we're not going to be able to call a bet on the turn. We're not going to be able to get any value, so may as well just bet and grab our equity right now. Top left table looks to be pretty fishy. 1 seat, 3 seat, 4 seat can all be fish. Top right, that's a small 3-bet sizing by the 4 seat. Wow. Just gets a snap fold by the 3 seat who's been playing pretty tight. That's very surprising. What kind of hand opens under the gun +1 and just snap folds to a mini 3-bet? I don't know the answer to that. Like ace-10 off, maybe? Not much happening at the moment. I don't really remember this session. I do know that I had it marked to make a video of it, so hopefully something happens. King Queen off in the big blind. Gonna call the ISO, not gonna 3-bet. So the reasons that we want to call the ISO, no, for sure should have called. I think that the 4 seed is going to be ISOing pretty wide versus an under the gun limper. King Queen's going to do pretty well against that range, despite being out of position. 3-betting it and basically turning it into a bluff, I just don't love that at all. Something that I see fairly often nowadays. I see people 3-betting hands like King Queen because of their blockers and villain's likely wide, but then they get 4-bet or villain calls the 3-bet, and we're dealing with a spot where now we're like squeezing with a hand that has negative implied odds and we're out of position versus a dominated range, and that's just how you get yourself into trouble. In that spot with the King Queen at the top left, the 3 seat can call a lot, and that's great because he's a fish, and that's going to handcuff the 4 seat from kind of over c-betting and over bluffing post flop. And the reason that it handcuffs him is because he's going to know that the fish calls a lot, so that's going to dissuade him from betting too thin. ace tray off at the bottom left. Looks like both blinds are playing pretty tight so far. So want to attack them, put the pressure on their blinds, and hopefully help our red line out a little bit. King jack off 5-handed. We can probably call or fold. I think it's pretty close. Bottom right table is not so lovely. If we do call with the king jack off, the plan is typically to be check raising coordinated middle boards that seem to hit our range, as well as just playing it for, top pair value, like big card value. We also want to bluff in certain spots, because it's going to be really hard to turn a profit just calling, hoping to flop a pair, and playing fit or fold post flop. Opting to fold the ace-7 suited at the bottom left. We could peel that as well. But again, it's a spot where we're going to have some negative implied odds when we do flop an ace. As a matter of fact, if we would have called and this would have been the flop, then probably just going to check fold versus the 1 seed who appears to be playing pretty tight, betting out 4 ways. When a guy bets out 4 ways, the strength of his range his range is much stronger than it would be if it were heads up or even 3 ways. Queen jack suited is a good hand. Playing out of position against a 12-5 is going to be dicey, but it is the cutoff, and the big blind is a fish, so we can invite him in the pot as well. I don't expect the 2 seed to really bet out on this board with a ton of bluffs. Like, I don't expect him to ever fold to that min check raise. I think when he bets out 3 ways on 7-8 king 2 hearts, typically he's got something. I don't exactly know what something means. I definitely don't know what the min check raise means. So min check raise checks, and now the 2 seed fires close to pot size bet. This is not a bluff ever. I would think the 2 seed has probably ace king plus here. I don't think he has like 9-10 of hearts. I don't think he has ace queen of hearts or ace 8 of hearts in this spot. With that sizing, just looks like pretty much value all day to me. King 8 off is very surprising, actually. I mean, see that's how stats can sometimes lead you astray. Villain was playing he's playing 14-7 now, but even tighter last hand, and just randomly opens in the cutoff with King 8 off. Like, I don't open in the cutoff, and I have way looser stats. I just don't know what exactly possesses somebody to take such a random action like that. And the shove with 8-9 of hearts, with 0 fold equity, by the way, don't do that. That was not good as well. Like we said, the 2 seed is very strong. He's never folding We can just call the turn. We have a pretty good hand, and if we improve on the river, we can just pile it ourselves against a strong range and kind of play the river perfectly and just check fold when we miss. It is real important to note that with 2 bets left on the turn, when there was like 130 in the pot and villain bet 111, like, always think about, when you're determining ranges and trying to figure out what guys can have, kind of think about it from their perspective. Like, if he does have ace queen of hearts, right, and he bets 111 and gets jammed on, like, that's pretty crappy. Like, he probably now does have to call it off. Let me think. He's actually I don't even know if he should be calling it off. He's getting 3-1. If you know your ace and your queen are live, then you can call it off. If you don't know that, it's probably just a fold. Getting 3-1. You need like 4.5 to 1 to call all in on the turn for with a flush draw. So, like, if he bets 111 and then folds to 200 more with the nut flush draw, that's a disastrous result. And that's probably the last thing that the 2-seat would want to do. More likely what the 2-seat would want to do is either bet smaller or check back. Bet smaller where a shove seems fairly unreasonable. Ace-4 off at the top left. I want to go back and kind of let's see what happened this hand. We got 4x ISO versus the fish. The reason that I 3-bet ace-4 off here is because I look at it as an unplayable hand. Not going to be able to turn a profit by calling, but I feel like I can turn a profit by 3-betting versus an ISO. This flop, king 5-5, probably betting it with my entire range. No reason to bet large. Want to bet small, maybe keep his range wide, and then fire another shell on the turn. And when thinking about sizings on the turn here, like, basically what we want to do is we want to come up with a sizing that makes a river shove look threatening. Like, villain can imagine that we're shoving tons of rivers. We now more believably have a strong hand. And so by betting 92 here, there will be 360 in the pot on the river, and we will have about 230 or 240. So makes the river shove very easy. We threaten everything with this sizing. I don't really see much benefit to going like any bigger, like 120 or 130. I think 90 gets the job done. Again, taking the small approach with the jacks at the top right. Gonna go for 3 streets once the king trips. And I want to bet an amount that I feel like gets called. I think I sized too big here, if my memory is correct. Yeah, I went for it. The reason that I overbet here, in hindsight, don't love it. I think I should have just went ahead and bet 43 and got called by the range that I think villain has, 6s, 7s, 8s. Instead, I tried to overbet and make it seem like he doesn't have a range that can call my overbet and get in a leveling war and have him call it with like 8s. But hindsight, I don't love it. I think my sizing I think I have too much value in my range to size up like that. Villain can imagine me having quads, aces, queens, jacks, 10s, and still be making the same play for value. So I do like the overbetting for value. in some spots, this spot is just not a great one because we have too much value in our range from the villain's perspective. With that being said, that makes it potentially a good bluffing opportunity. And it's actually okay. Like, a lot of people worried about getting caught bluffing in a spot like that where we overbet the river. But as long as we're not out of control with our frequencies and bluffing that spot every single time, if we do have value in our perceived range, then it's okay. Like, it's okay to get caught bluffing. I was doing a sweat session with one of my students the other day, and we had a spot where I bet the river and villain folded, and I said out loud a little, probably sounded a little silly, but like, it was a spot where, this queen's hand was kind of silly. I should have just 3-bet pre, getting a little too fancy play. Should have just gone ahead and 3-bet pre, hoping to maybe invite the 3 seat to go ahead and pile it in. But anyway, I had one of the only bluffing combos on a board and that I could possibly have, and I bluffed and villain folded, and I said that I kind of wish villain would call there. Like, even though I would have lost the pot, like, I only had a couple of bluffing combos, so if like 20% of my range or 15% of my range are bluffs and the other 85% is value, then I kind of want villains to be calling fairly wide there, right? So that my value gets more action. Nines opened. I think we bet flop. Check turn. Interesting. I'm gonna go back and see. We opened. He called. We must have bet small. We bet tiny. Good try, pocket trays. 3 high almost took her down. Guy at the top right table seems out of control. 64.42. Up $949. We need to run good. Need to get some value hands against that fellow in position. Now we get the open shove by the 3 seat at the top left. Where was that when we had queens a couple of hands ago? Now that I think about it too, the queen's hand was against the guy that I had 3-bet and barreled off with the ace 4, so kind of was set up perfect for me, and I bungled it. Bungled it by trying to get too sneaky. Cold 4 at the bottom left. New guys sit at the table and want to start out with a bang, always 3-betting. I'm not sure if it's just one of those things that actually happens or just feels like it happens, but when new players sit at the table, it really feels like they 3-bet way more often in their first orbit than they otherwise would. So for you guys that are watching this video, if y'all haven't subscribed to my newsletter, I would be very, very appreciative of that. I'm going to be sending out some new content exclusively through the newsletter, and that's the best way that you can support my content creation. Ace deuce, can't do nothing. We could float actually, but Villain's c-bet is like 18% on 995, 2 diamonds. He bets small, potentially hoping that we float. Better to just fold our little ace deuce and continue, when we have maybe pocket pairs or 5x, stuff like that. So we decide to float out of position and lead with the 10-8 off. Now what are we going to do? Now we just give up. As it turns out, May should have fired that third shell. Tough for him to stick around with the ace-9. The reason we floated with the 10-8 was because we don't think Villains always bet flop with ace-x. I think he's going to be betting much wider than that. When we call, we can credibly rep ace-x. Hopefully turn will often go check, and then we just bet small in the river and take it down. Deuces at the bottom left. No action. At the top left, Villain just doubled through with his 6 and a 10. That's good news. I think it's very important to note with the 10-8 hand, does look like I am check calling out of position with no equity, which typically is not a winning strategy. But we should always keep in mind, like, we want to exploit the tendencies of our opponents. Like, if Villains check back on ace-x boards a wide percentage of the time, and then they c-bet. Like, what does that c-bet mean? When they check back showdown value hands on like 7-7 deuce, like they'll check back ace king, ace queen. Maybe, I guess a lot of people will bet their pocket pairs for protection. But like, what does it mean typically when Villains bet on dry boards, king 7 deuce, where they check back a lot of their showdown value stuff? Like, to me, it means that they're more bluff heavy. So if Villains are betting in those spots and they're more bluff heavy, then that gives us an opportunity to exploit them over bluffing. Pretty good flop at the top right, check calling. Now from Villain's perspective, our range looks like ace-x. We do decide to check raise. I think check calling might actually be better versus that small bet. Typically, if he's betting small there, I think he's probably going to continue betting for value on the river. But then again, if we can predict that he's value betting 3 streets, then maybe we should just go ahead and check raise the turn and try to get max value. For sure could have check raised the ace-jack at the bottom right. I actually like check raising more than I like check folding. We have the ace of clubs blocker. That's a board he's going to c-bet with a high frequency. When guys are doing anything with a high frequency, I tend to question whether or not, what's the best way to proceed? Like, if guys are always betting 100% or guys are squeezing with a super high frequency. Like that typically to me means that their range is much wider than it otherwise would be, so it creates opportunity. We always need to be on the lookout for that opportunity. Ace queen with the ace of hearts. That is another great flop at the top right. And alas, cannot get any action. Looking out the window. Looks like I'm looking out the window, staring at the birds, trying to chase down butterflies. More than likely, I ran to the bathroom. Our fish went broke at the top left. And during this break of where I'm doing whatever it is that I'm doing, I want to remind you guys, Twitch, Saturdays, 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come hang out. Come talk to me. Oh man, I'm going to time out with my jacks, aren't I? Ugh. Horrible. Right as I make it back. Oh yeah, my Twitch is twitch.tv/enhanceYourEdge. That's twitch.tv/enhanceYourEdge. I guess it helps to give out my Twitch username. That's gonna be tough to find me otherwise. Good news about at the top left, fish reloaded to full stack. Happy day. Like my video is going to be coming to a close pretty soon. Guess we can play our ace-4, our jacks. Two seed at the bottom left. Remember Mr. King 8. Maybe King 8 off is his favorite hand, or he really enjoys opening from the cutoff. I don't know. We opt to flat and not 3-bet him because his range is so tight. Despite the fact that he had King 8 off, I don't know what that was about. So we're raising. We're raising because we don't rep much other than flush draws, and we think we can get some light action. I don't know that I love raising. I think by check calling, we still keep our range fairly wide. And we can kind of give him some rope to barrel off. And even value bet like 9s, 8s, 7s. But if he does have 9s, 8s, and 7s, I don't think he's going anywhere when we check raise him on deuce, deuce, 5, 2 hearts. We just have such little value in our range. But we do want him to continue betting with a hand like ace 10 or king 8. That would be a good one for him to keep putting bets in the pot, and that's if he realizes that his range is way ahead of our range. But with him being such a nit, I don't really expect them to take uber aggressive lines post flop, so we can't count on him putting in a ton of bets bad. Aces is a pretty good hand. Should be just flatting this 3-bet. Unless it gets 4-bet, in which case, or cold flatted. Like, very hard to just flat now and take the flop 3 ways. Even though when we 4-bet here versus the small blind who just flatted a 3-bet, it looks ridiculously strong. Kind of unfortunate, because the small blind's range right here is like ace, queen, jacks, tens. They have a pretty strong range themselves. Alright, I want to thank y'all for watching this video, and going to be releasing some more content pretty soon. I will catch y'all on the flippity flip. See ya.